Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Storytime with Belle. I hope you're all doing well today. I know this isolation and quarantine has not been easy on any of us. The master, of course, is the beast, but he has had a very long time to do it, and his secret, well, it's not one that you would want. He forgot all about who he was. But you guys are stronger than that. And that is why I am here again today to continue Chapter 6 of The Princess Bride. Will Fezzik and Inigo find the man in black? Will Wesley survive the tortures of Count Rugen? And will Buttercup really have to marry Prince Humperdinck? Let's find out. In the third part I have of Chapter 6. It was dusk when they began their search blindly through all of Florence City. Dusk, a day before the wedding. Count Rugen was about to begin his nightly experiments at that dusk, gathering up his notebooks from his room, filled with all his jottings. 5 levels underground, behind high castle walls, locked and chained and silent, Wesley waited beside the machine. In a way, he still looked like Wesley, except, of course, that he had been broken. 20 years of his life had been sucked away. 20 were left. Pain was anticipation. Soon the Count would come again. Against any wishes he had left, Wesley went on crying. It was dusk when Buttercup went to see the prince. She knocked loudly, waited, knocked again. She could hear him shouting inside, and if it had not been so important, she would never have knocked the third time. But she did, and the door was yanked open, and the look of anger on his face immediately changed to the sweetest smile. "Beloved," he said, "come in. A moment more is all I need." And he turned back to Yellen. "Look at her, Yellen, my bride-to-be. Has any man ever been so blessed?" Yellen shook his head. "Am I wrong? Do you think to go to any lengths, then, to protect her?" Yellen shook his head again. The prince was driving him crazy with his stories of the Gilder infiltration. Yellen had every spy he'd ever used working day and night, and not one of them had come up with anything about Gilder. And yet the prince insisted. Inwardly, Yellen sighed. It was beyond him. He was simply an enforcer, not a prince. In fact, the only remotely disturbing news he'd heard since he'd closed the Thieves' Quarter that morning was within the hour that someone told him of a rumor that the ship of the dread pirate Roberts had been seen sailing all the way to Florence Channel itself. But such a thing, Yellen knew from long experience, was simply a rumor. "I tell you, they are everywhere, these Gilders," the prince went on. "And since you seem unable to stop them, I wish to change some plans. All the gates have been sealed to my castle, except for the front one, yes? Yes, and 20 men guard it. Add 80. I want 100 men. Clear? 100 men it will be. Every brute available. Inside the castle I'm quite safe. I have my own supplies, food, stables, enough. As long as they cannot get to me, I will survive. These, then, are the new and final plans. Jot them down. All 500th anniversary arrangements are cancelled until the wedding. The wedding is tomorrow at sunset. My bride and I will ride my whites to Florence Channel, surrounded by all your enforcers. There, we will board a ship and begin our long-awaited honeymoon, surrounded by every ship in the Floran Armada. Never ship before, Buttercup corrected. He blinked at her a moment in silence. Then he said, blowing her a kiss, but discreetly, so Yellen couldn't see. Yes, yes. How could I forget? Every ship before. He turned back to Yellen. But in his blink, in that following silence, Buttercup had seen it all. Those ships will set sail with us until I deem it safe to release them. Of course, Gilder could attack then, but that is a chance we must risk. Let me think. if there's anything else. The prince loved giving orders, especially the kind he knew would never need carrying out. Also, Yellen was a slow jotter. That only added to the fun. "Excused," the prince said finally, and with a bow, Yellen was gone. "The 4 ships were never sent," Buttercup said when they were done. "Don't bother lying to me anymore." "Whatever was done for your own good, Sweet Pudding. Somehow, I do not think so. You are nervous. I'm nervous. We're getting married tomorrow. We've got a right to be. You couldn't be more wrong, you know. I'm very calm." And in truth, she did seem that way. "It doesn't matter whether you sent those ships or not. Wesley will come for me. There is a God, I know that. And there is love, I know that too. So Wesley will save me." "You're a silly girl. Now go to your room." "Yes, I am a silly girl, and yes, I will go to my room. And you are a coward with a heart full of nothing but fear." The prince had to laugh. "The greatest hunter in the world, and you say I am a coward?" I do indeed. I'm getting smarter as I age. I say you are a coward, and you are. I think you hunt only to rescue yourself. I think you only hunt to reassure yourself that you are not what you are, the weakest thing to ever walk the earth. He will come for me. Then we will be gone, and you will be helpless for all your hunting, because Wesley and I are joined by the bond of love, and you cannot track that. Not with 1,000 bloodhounds, and you cannot break it. Not with 1,000 words. Humperdinck screamed toward her then, ripping at her autumn hair, yanking her from her feet and down the curving corridor to her room. When he tore that door open and threw her inside and locked her there and started running for the underground entrance to the Zoo of Death. My father stopped reading. "Go on," I said. "That's my place," he said. And I waited there, still weak with pneumonia and wet with fear, until he started reading again. Inigo allowed Fezzik to open the door. "Hey!" I said. "Hold it. That's not right. You skipped." And then I caught my tongue because we had just had the scene I got upset about Buttercup marrying Humperdinck when I accused him of skimping. I didn't want to repeat of that. "Daddy," I said, "I didn't mean anything or anything, but wasn't the prince sort of running toward the zoo, and the next thing you said was Inigo, and maybe shouldn't there be a page or like that in between?" My father started to close the book. "I'm not fighting. Please don't close it." "It's not for that," he said. He looked at me for a long time. "Billy," he said. He almost never called me that. I loved it when he did. Anybody else, I hated it. But when the barber did it, I don't know. I just melted. "Billy, do you trust me?" "What is that?" Of course I do." "Billy, you got pneumonia. You're taking this book very seriously." "I know, because we fought about it once." "I'm not fighting anymore. Listen to me. I never lied to you yet, did I? Okay, trust me. I don't want to read while you read the rest of this chapter, and I want you to say it's all right." "Why? What happens in the rest of this chapter?" "If I tell you, I could accomplish the same by reading." "Just say okay." "I can't say that until I know what happens." "But tell me what happens, and I'll tell you if it's okay. I promise if I don't want to hear it, you can skip on to Inigo." "You won't do me this favor?" "I'll sneak out of bed when you're asleep. I don't care where you hide the book. I'll find it, and I'll read the rest of the chapter myself. So you might as well tell me. Billy, please." "I got you. You might as well admit it." My father sighed this terrible sound. I knew I had beaten him. "Wesley dies," my father said. I said, "What do you mean Wesley dies? You mean dies?" My father nodded. "Prince Humperdinck kills him." "He's only faking though, right?" My father shook his head, closed the book all the way. "Oh, shit," I said, and I started to cry. "I'm sorry, my father," I said. "I'll leave you alone," and he left me. "Who gets Humperdinck?" I screamed after him. He stopped in the hall. "I don't understand." "Who kills Prince Humperdinck?" At the end, someone's got to get him. Is it Fezzik? Who? Nobody kills him. He lives. You mean he wins, Daddy? Jesus, what did you read me this thing for? And I buried my head in my pillow, and I never cried like that again. Not once to this day. I could feel almost my heart emptying into my pillow. I guess the most amazing thing about crying is that when you're in it, you think it's going to go on forever. But it never really lasts half what you think. Not in terms of real time. In terms of real emotions. It's worse than you think. But not by the clock. My father came back. And it couldn't have even been an hour later. So, he said, shall we go on tonight or not? Shoot, I told him. Eyes dry, no catching throat, nothing. Fire went ready. Then you go? Let's hear the murder, I said. I knew it was only about to bawl again. Like buttercups. My heart was now a secret garden, and the walls were very high. Shall I continue? Do you really want to hear about sweet, sweet poor Wesley's death? You do? Really? All right, I mean, I told you this was one of my favorite books, but I guess you should see why. Humperdinck screamed toward her then, ripped at her autumn hair, yanking her from her feet and down the long corridor toward her room, where he tore the door open and threw her inside and locked her there and started running for the underground entrance to the Zoo of Death. And down he plunged, giant stride after giant stride, and he threw the door of the fifth level cage open. And when he threw the door of the fifth level cage open, even Count Rugen was startled by the purity of whatever the emotion was reflected in the prince's eyes. The prince moved to Wesley. She loves you, the prince cried. She loves you still, and you love her. So think of that. Of this too. In all this world, you might have been happy, genuinely happy. Not one couple in a century has that chance. Not really. No matter what the storybooks say. But you could have had it. And so, I would think no one will ever suffer a loss as great as you. And with that, he grabbed the dial and pushed it all the way forward, and the Count cried, "Not to 20!" But by then it was too late. The death scream had started. It was much worse than the scream of the wild dog. In the first place, the dial for the wild dog had only been set to 6, whereas this was more than triple that. And so naturally enough, it was more than 3 times as long, more than 3 times as loud. But none of this really was why it was worse. It was the scream from a human throat that made the difference. In her chamber, Buttercup heard it, and it frightened her. But she had not the least idea of what it was. By the main entrance of the door, Yellen heard it. It also frightened him, though he couldn't imagine what it was either. All the 100 brutes and fighters flanked by the main door, heard it too. And to a man, they were not bothered by it. And they talked over it for a while, and none of them had any great notions as to what it might have been. The great square was filled with common people, excited about the coming wedding and anniversary, and they heard it too. And no one even made the pretense of not being scared. But again, none of them knew at all what it might have been. The death scream rose higher in the night. All the streets leading into the square were also filled with citizens, all trying to crowd it into the square, and they heard it. But once they admitted they were petrified, they gave up trying to guess what it might have been. Inigo knew immediately. In the tiny alley that he and Fezzik were trying to force their way through, he stopped remembering. The alley led to the streets that led to the square, and the alley was jammed too. "I don't like that sound," Fezzik said, his skin, for the moment, cold. Inigo grabbed the giant, and words began pouring out. "Fezzik, Fezzik, that is the sound of ultimate suffering." "I know that sound. That is the sound in my heart when Count Rugen slaughtered my father, and I saw him fell. The man in black makes it now. You think it's him? You think that's him? Who else could cause for such ultimate suffering this celebration? And with that, he started to follow the sounds. But the crowds were in his way. And he was strong, but he was thin, and he cried, Fezzik! Fezzik, we must track that sound. We must trace it to its source. I cannot move, so you must lead me. Fly, Fezzik. This is Inigo begging you. Make a path, please. Well, Fezzik had rarely had anyone beg for him for anything, least of all Inigo. And when something like that happened, you did what you could. So Fezzik, without waiting, began to push forward. Lots of people. Fezzik pushed harder. Lots of people began to move out of Fezzik's way. Fast. The death scream was starting to fade now, fading in the clouds. Fezzik, Inigo said, all your power, now! Down the alley, Fezzik ran, people screaming and diving to get out of his way. And in his footsteps, Inigo kept pace. And at the end of the alley was a street, and in the scream was fainter now, but Fezzik turned left, and into the middle of the street he went, and he owned it. No one was in his way. Nothing dared block his way, and the scream was getting so hard to hear. So with all his might, Fezzik roared, Quiet! And the street was suddenly hushed, and Fezzik pounded along. Inigo was right behind, and the scream was still there, still faintly there, and the great square itself, and the castle beyond, before the scream was gone. Wesley lay dead by the machine. The prince kept the dial by the 20 mark long after it was necessary, until the count said, Done. The prince left without another look at Wesley. He took the secret underground stairs at a time. She actually called me a coward, he said, and he was gone from sight. Count Rugen started taking notes. Then he threw his quill pen down. He tested Wesley briefly, and he shook his head. Death was not of any intellectual interest to him at all. When you were dead, you couldn't react to pain, the count said. Dispose of the body. Because even he couldn't see the albino. Because even though he couldn't see the albino, he knew the albino was there. It was a shame. It was really a shame. He realized as he mounted the steps after the prince, you just didn't come across victims like Wesley every day of the year. When they were gone, the albino came out, pulled the cups from the corpse, decided to burn the body by the garbage pile, there behind the castle, which meant a wheelbarrow. He hurried up the underground stairs, came out the secret entrance, moved quickly to the main tool shed. All the wheelbarrows were buried back at the rear wall, beside the hoes and the rakes and the hedge trimmers. The albino made a hissing sound of displeasure and began to pick his way through all the other equipment. This kind of sound of displeasure began to pick up this kind of thing always seemed to happen to him when he was in a hurry. The albino hissed again. Extra work all the time. Wouldn't you just know it? He finally got the barrow out and was passing the false and deadly supposed main entrance to the zoo when I'm having the devil's own trouble tracking that scream was spoken to him. The albino whirled around, and there in the castle grounds, a thin-blade stranger, the sword in his hand. The sword suddenly flicked its way to the albino's throat. Where is the man in black? The swordman said then. He had a giant scar slanted down each cheek and seemed like no one to trifle with. Whispered, I know the man in black. Did the scream come from that place? The fellow indicated the main entrance. Nod. And the throat it came from. I need this man, so be quick. Whispered, Wesley. Inigo reasoned. A sailor, brought here by Rugen. Nod. And I reach him where? The albino hesitated and pointed to the deadly entrance, whispered. He is on the bottom level, 5 levels down. Then I have no more need for you. Quiet him for a while, Fezzik. From behind him, the albino was aware of a giant shadow moving. Funny, he thought. The last thing he remembered. I thought that was a tree. Inigo was on fire now. There was no stopping him. Fezzik hesitated by the main door. Why was he telling the truth? He's a zookeeper, threatened with death. Why would he lie? That doesn't follow. I don't care. Inigo said sharply, and in fact he didn't. He knew in his heart the man in black was down there. There was no other reason for Fezzik to find him. For Fezzik to know Rugen. For everything to be coming together after so many years of waiting. If there was a God, then there was a man in black waiting. Inigo knew. He knew it. And of course, he was absolutely right. But again, of course, there were many things he did not know. That the man in black was dead, for one. That the entrance they were taking was the wrong one. For another, a false step one, set up to foil those like himself who did not belong there. There were spitting cobras down there, though what would actually come at him would be worse. These things he did not know either. But his father had to be revenged, and the man in black would figure out how, and that was enough for Inigo. And so, with an urgency that would soon turn to deep regret, he and Fezzik approached the Zoo of Death. Well, what did you think? Are you as upset as I am about the fact that Inigo is dead? That Wesley is dead? I mean, he was supposed to save Buttercup. I know. I feel it too. And it is okay to cry about this. The best books are the ones where you get so involved with, where you just feel your heart breaking for the characters. Don't worry, guys. We still have time. Fezzik and Inigo are still alive. Maybe they can save Buttercup from having to marry Prince Humperdinck. And hopefully Inigo will get to avenge his father. I hope you guys are okay. Thank you. Alright, everyone. My real name is Erica Shore, and I started this early on in the quarantine to try and have some sort of motivation, something to do, something different, and to keep you guys as entertained and busy as I am with this. If you like my content, if you like what you see, beginning of this video you saw my website, ericashore.com. Please come and visit. You can email me at efshore@yahoo.com, or you can go to my Instagram at Erica F. Shore, ErikaFSHORE, all one word. I'm also on TikTok, and I will try to provide links where I can. Thank you guys so much. Stay safe, stay healthy. You are not alone.